You're listening to SM Media, the home of exclusive West of Scotland Football League content. Welcome to part one of SM Media's West of Scotland Football League Premier Division season preview. In this episode, we speak to Beith manager Chris Troon, Cumnock manager John Doyle, Troon assistant manager Dean Keenan, and Kirkintilloch Rob Roy manager Kevin McGoldrick about their hopes and expectations for the season ahead. And we'll pass it on. The first interview will be with Chris Troon. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be joined by the manager of Beith Juniors, Chris Troon. Chris, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure.
Hi, Scott. Nice to be on.
How are we? It's been a busy summer, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's relatively low-key for us, but it's this busy time of the year. It's been chaotic in terms of the amount of phone calls you have to deal with and different things, but that's just part and parcel. Everybody's the same at this stage of the season. But in terms of us as a squad and different things, it's been relatively plain sailing for us.
And obviously last season winning the league and the tremendous performance it was all season, how do you look back on it now, now the kind of dust settled, and as an overall kind of recap, how would you rank it?
Oh, I mean, it was a phenomenal achievement. I think you only need to look at what was being said throughout the season in terms of who was favourites and what was expected for teams, and we obviously flew under the radar for a large part of that. And when you are significant underdogs, and you go and achieve something the way we did, then it gives you an immense sense of pride. But that pride's kind of quickly forgotten about, and it's on to, can we repeat it, and can we kick on again, and can we all improve as individuals and the collective again, and try and do the same thing again. And again, indeed, for us, we were disappointing in the cups, and that's something we want to rectify as well. So it's all about trying to improve and get better.
And it's obviously as well, you look at the kind of business other teams are doing, and it's going to be a terrific standard again this season, isn't it?
Yeah, I think again you'll see, I think the teams that are coming up are an improvement in the teams that went down, and that's no disrespect to the teams that went down. That's just the financial muscle that the teams have got that are coming up, and again, Benburb went down the previous season and have bounced back up. They know what it's about this time. They were unlucky probably to get relegated the season they went down. So everybody will have to, sharpen their game. And again, I look at all the teams, and most of them will feel that they're in an improved situation to what they were at the beginning of last season. So it will be tough. It will be tougher again. And we're in that scenario. We've had a better pre-season than we did last time out. Less upheaval as such, and there's a wee bit of continuity there. So hopefully that allows us to continue in the vein that we left off, and we have as a successful a season as we did last year.
And you mentioned there about continuity. Obviously, there is talk of an offer for Josh Fowler coming in. Obviously, you can say I don't know if you want to talk about that, but there's a lot of, when you have a season like you did, it must be kind of hard to kind of fend off offers and things like that, because that's kind of the nature. If you've got a good side, it's only a matter of time before the players get recognised. How kind of hard's that been to kind of, that must be in your mind as well when players are kind of getting noticed elsewhere?
Yeah, I think because we've given the players the platform that we've given them, they're happy at this moment in time, and the club are obviously striving to get their SFA licence. We're hoping to get the issue of the ground sorted out, which would allow us to progress if we did have the success. So the squad's relatively young, it's ambitious, and I think we share the ambition, and that's important for everybody to, be on the same page in terms of where we're at in their development and their careers as such. You're quite right in what you say that success to a certain degree means that people keep an eye out on your players, and we're no different for that. We get requests every second week, when we're playing at home, for scouts to come and watch our players, because we treat the players well, and most of them are on longer term deals. Then we're in a position of strength in terms of we don't need to sell our players, and our players are happy. Josh, as you mentioned, has attracted a lot of attention, and attention at a very, very high level. Premier League clubs he's been in training with, and the club were very good to grant him that permission. He's got an offer from an international team that he wants to pursue as well, and at this moment in time, it looks as if Josh will move on from us at the start of the season, but he goes with our best wishes, and if he does indeed go, then he's earned that right, and he's earned that move. And we're very open with the players when they sign contracts. Josh signed a brand new contract only in January, February time, and within that contract, we said to him, if a team comes in and is available to you, we won't stand in your way. And I think that's very important for the younger players to understand that we won't, whilst we want them to sign long-term deals so that we can build a nucleus squad at this level. If they get offers that are, for them career changing, then we won't stand in their way, and we put in clauses to allow them to move for appropriate compensation and no silly money, if you know what I mean, that puts other teams off. So Josh has got that in his agreement, and he's quite within his rights to pursue that. And as I say, kid had a fantastic season last year. He'll be a miss for us if he does indeed go, but we're confident that we can replace him and indeed kick on. It might mean that we have a different style of play, or do something different at the top end of the pitch, but Josh would certainly go with our best wishes.
Yeah, and I mean, some really kind of good kind of signings already kind of come in. Obviously, one I want to touch on when you're looking to, if you're saying obviously Josh is potentially moving on, the signing of Keenan for Renfrew, obviously a player who scored goals at a really good level for Renfrew the past couple of seasons. He must be a kind of a good addition for you in terms of like adding goals to the system. Yeah,
Kieran's, he's got a very good background, and as you say, he had a very good season last year in terms of numbers. There's a bit of development in him, which I like. You can look at Josh last season. He really developed under us, and I think Kieran comes under that mould. He's got the raw attributes to really be a success at this level and kick on again. He's got a good grounding in terms of his youth football career, and I think if I can get into him and motivate him and push him on, then he's got bags and bags of potential. He fits the profile of what we want in terms of when we're signing players. Young, hungry, he's got that ambition, and again, he's come in and slotted into the group very well. Quite a quiet lad, but again, I'm sure he'll come out his shell as time goes on, but that he fits into the group and the age profile of the guys that we want to work with.
And just some of the other signings that he's brought in, obviously Jordan Scott for Petershill, Ryan Moran for Muirkirk, and obviously changed the goalkeeper with Jamie Walker.
I will. Jamie's come in, and Owen's, still there, so they've got a bit of fist up for the goalkeeping department, which is something that we wanted to improve on. Defensive options have improved. We've brought on Victor Amordi from Ardrossan Winton Rovers. Victor's come in, showed up really, really well. Again, young, hungry, wants to progress his football career. He's got a real physicality about him, and delighted to bring him in. So that gives us a wee bit of strength and depth at the back. And then going into that midfield area, as you say, Jordan come in from Petershill. Jordan, again, probably had a bit of stop-start season last year, and there's bags of improvement for Jordan. That I can see if he gets himself fitter, sharper. He's got a really good left foot. He can play at left back. He can play left centre half. He's speaking in the right terms to me in terms of how he wants to improve and get to the level that he thinks he can achieve, and that to me is all good. So I'm pleased with him. He's got a bit to go at this moment in time, to reach his potential, but again, fine. Ryan's come in at the top end of the pitch along with Kieran, giving us another dynamic. Something that we probably lacked last year is a bit of physicality, and he brings that to us. And again, we've retained the bulk of the squad, which I'm happy with, and there's one or two guys that are in with us just now training that we're just trying to kind of iron out deals and hopefully get them over the line.
And kind of final question, obviously the expectations for the season ahead, there's going to be a lot of games. What's your kind of overall kind of hopes going into the season?
I'm not one for setting, targets and whatever. As you say at the outset, it's going to be a very competitive league. I look at the likes of Hurlford improved again from last year. Troon, teams that are looking to make that jump up into that top 5 or 6 teams. Then you add into the mix, I say St Cadoc's coming up. Obviously, have spent a wee bit of money and recruited in a grander scale than probably some of the other teams that have come up previously. And you'll have your guys that have been there. Moff's been building at Clydebank for a couple of years, signed some good players. They're heavily tipped, to do well this season. And you've got your Pollock, Falconlecks, Darvels, who have been in and out the mix for the last 3 or 4 years together. So it makes for an exciting league. It's going to be really tough. It'll be a bit of a war of attrition. I think a squad, which we've got a better squad in terms of numbers than we had last year, is vital for us, and hopefully we can go and do and replicate what we did last year and put a string of wins together. I think teams that do that in our league and provide consistency will be the teams that will be up towards the top end of the league. There's fantastic players in every squad. Some of the strength and depth that you look at in the squads, you think, wow, but it brings its own problems sometimes in trying to manage and keep everybody happy. So we're happy where we're at in terms of numbers. We're happy where we're at in terms of the squad and the guys that we've got. It's just a case of building on the games at pre-season and be ready to start a week on Saturday.
Well, we're wishing you all the best for the season ahead, Chris. Thank you very much. Again, pleasure as always.
Cheers, Scott.
So it is a pleasure to welcome on the new manager of Cumnock Juniors, John Doyle. John, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure.
Thanks very much, mate. Aye, just different club this time.
Different club, aye. It's been a bit of a busy summer. How you feeling with back in the game? Obviously, it was you kind of left St Cadoc's towards the end of last season, but how's it feeling with back at a new club and back in the game?
Mate, it's brilliant to be back in so quick. Obviously, it was a bit of shock with my departure for St Cadoc's, so close to the end of the season and stuff, and achieving our objective there. So, to boot, it was a bit of shock, and obviously that wee bit of time off, which was a bit probably frustrating for the first few weeks, to be honest. Just looking back on my time at St Cadoc's, and then obviously you get a few weeks where you actually can enjoy the wee bit of the break, and then before you know it, you're back in. It's always a job I wasn't expecting to come up. I did honestly think usually they get 1 or 2 jobs at that time of the seasons, but nothing came about. So I was kind of sitting speaking to the wife and stuff, and I'm saying it's going to be on at least maybe 4, 5, 6 months anyway before maybe it kind of comes up, and then the kind of job come up. So delighted to be there. It's a brilliant club. It's a club I've certainly been an admirer of for a number of years. Their setup there has been brilliant. So I'm delighted to be there.
Obviously, it's a tough job replacing Brian. Obviously, kind of leading the side to the Junior Cup. Just how good's the feeling around the club at the moment? Obviously, that big achievement and what Brian did last season to get them there.
As I've been a buzz certainly about the whole place. And just obviously in the town as well. It's been excellent, and at the same time though, football's very, very quick. It's moved on already. We're already talking the fact that Brian's left and we've come in. They're already talking about what's going to happen right away. So it's been kind of, albeit the success is there, it's kind of been put to the back burner quite quickly because it's under again a new year, a new regime, and what's going to happen, and obviously a few incomings and outgoings and stuff as well. So there's lots happening. So if anything, I'll probably say the last season's, albeit they're celebrating it, and to the degree it's kind of still moved on pretty quickly.
And one thing, obviously, this league is very competitive. There's a lot of teams rebuilding and strengthening, like yourselves as well. When you look at the league, just how competitive is it?
I think this season you look who's come up, and it's going to be frighteningly tough this season. You look at the players, the clubs in this league. And as I said, the ones come up with Cairn, St Cadoc's and Benburb as well, strong sides. It's going to be really, really difficult to call. And again, it's exciting at the same time. It's exciting, but you look at obviously it's like a winning last season. You go a few years they've had previously, they were doing really, really well, and up there and thereabouts next minute they have one bad season and they're relegated. So that's how cutthroat it can be. And like I Beith, obviously we're always maybe 8th or something like the year before, and all of a sudden go and win it. So it's open. It's very, very open. There's a few teams that obviously fancy themselves this season because there's a lot of teams in transition and stuff. But it's a really, really tough league and something we're looking forward to.
And obviously, getting into Cumnock, there's a really good quote there that had obviously won the cup last season, and you've obviously made your own kind of mark in the squad. The likes of bringing in the likes of Tam McGoldrick and Neilston, Jamie McKellen, obviously well known at Glenafton, obviously just being at Troon as well. So, what was it like? When did you kind of identify those type of players that you wanted in, and how good's the kind of core there at the moment?
In terms of core, I think we've about 15, 16 players signed. They're in amongst that with a real body blow straight away with Big Cosy. Big Cosy's obviously unavailable due to work, so he's had to leave. Albeit we're not quite sure when he'll be back. He'll be back at some point. We just don't know sure where. So we had to kind of really mentally move on for it and try and obviously replace him. So we brought in Big Keenan Coleman to come in there, who's done very well so far. And to be honest, we came in really late. Obviously, that's not the best time we came in it, because obviously I think in terms of signings and who was maybe available was very, very limited. So we had to kind of just assess the squad quite quick, which we did that anyway. We're kind of doing that. I'm quite on it that way every week. I always look at highlights and videos like so. Come out of video of their games last season, so I've got to see an awful lot of their games, and I've got just to see obviously what players were at the club, albeit a few have moved on, and we've obviously got one or two in there who are still maybe looking to move on, and we'll obviously look to try and replace. It's certainly not been the easiest time to come in. It should be, in a sense, just having won the Junior Scottish Cup, so you should be in there buzzing the group. But it's, everything else is football. People want to maybe make moves, so if we've got one or two in there to go and do that, and obviously losing Cosy, so to replace them, it's not been easy. We've obviously brought in Kieran Coleman and Robbie Buchanan and stuff like that, as well as you say, Tamagotchi and stuff. So we've got one or two others we're still looking at. And listen, the team over the next couple of weeks may change again in a couple of positions, and we're still looking to add one or two. But as I said, in terms of identifying players, it's difficult. Jamie McKern obviously is the kind of one we brought in because we just happened to know he was a free agent, and it's an area of the pitch we needed. So it was quite straightforward to try and get him in. As you say, he's got good experience at this level and above, so he's a good lad as well. So we're obviously trying to do our homework on who we're bringing in and will they fit with us, and that's the biggest thing. If they get the right attitude, the right mentality for us, and do they fit with the way we want to go and do things as well. So not been the best at times, but we've did all right, I think, so far. We would have managed to get in a short period of time at a difficult stage of the season, really.
And you obviously mentioned about a potential outgoing. There's obviously chat about the Jordan Moore situation. Obviously, the Bill reports he wants to leave. There's talk about come in for a club. That's obviously a kind of big distraction. Obviously, the goals he scored last season and what he brings to the Cumnock's front line. Like how do you kind of go about kind of preparing for the season with that kind of cloud hanging?
It's not ideal. I think most managers take you obviously when you want to work with players that want to beat the club, and you want to everybody's in it together. Then obviously Jordan's looking elsewhere at the moment. There's a bid, a couple of bids come in. One's been accepted, and one's been rejected, as far as I know. So, as I said, for us, we'd like to keep a hold of Jordan. We'd like to have actually put on a new deal with, no, just certainly see out his remainder of the season with us, and he can move next season if he wants. But that seems to be obviously something that he wants to move sooner rather than later. For us, we would like it to happen sooner rather than later as well, so we can maybe move on. But like I said to Jordan, I said to anybody that's looking to move, we need to get players in. We need to obviously go and find the kind of replacements, and that's not easy. And especially at this stage of the season, so it might be one of the things that doesn't happen kind of straight away. Maybe a month or two along the line before any kind of movement happens. But as I said, I ideally like to get a kind of resolution to it. But at the same time, to be fair to Jordan, the few sessions I was away on holiday last week, so I've only been in one session with Jordan, to be fair, and he's trained hard and he's worked hard and his attitude's been spot on. So we can't grumble in that sense. He's away on holiday himself at the moment, so as I said, it's just kind of as a bit of a cloud hanging over us, but we're mentally just trying to still prepare obviously for the season, and we'll just keep plodding away until sort of things happen. We've just managed to get a sign in yesterday as well, Josh Weir as well, so that'll hopefully give us a little bit of competition up there if Jordan stays or goes. We've maybe at least got somebody that can go and fill that void. So we're still in a kind of decent position as a club, but we'll just need to kind of wait and see just over the next coming weeks what happens and what transpires for that.
And kind of final question, what's the kind of expectations for the season ahead? Are you looking to just obviously a fast start's important, but how do you kind of see the season from your point of view?
Well, we're probably changing things maybe a little bit in terms of how our style, for maybe what Gints and H did last season. So it's trying to get the players bedded into that, which is not going to be easy. It's not. It's got to take a wee bit of time for that to happen. And over the next coming months, it'll be difficult, I would say. But again, we're always looking to see, okay, can we improve on last season? And that's really what we're trying to do. Albeit, obviously, we're coming at a difficult time, and maybe one or two players leaving, some big players maybe potentially leaving, and then we can try and bring replacements. So it's kind of up there a little bit as to where our mindset is as to how good this season we're going to be. But the one thing for us, and certainly myself and Palmer and the management team, is we work very, very hard to get that right. And as I said, we're looking to try and just make improvements on last season. The league is a kind of bread and butter. Obviously, they won the Junior Scottish Cup, so listen, if you can retain that, you're doing brilliant. And hopefully that's the case. But we'll give it our best shot in every competition. But as I said, by and large, the league's where we're going to really be get tested and where we're going to be judged probably. So we're hoping to try and just improve on last season's league position and take it each game that comes. An old cliche, but that's pretty much that. We'll just get in and obviously try and improve as much as we can. But I think more importantly for us is to get our style across how we want to go and do things. And if we see that happening, then we're pretty confident obviously we'll be able to go and improve.
Well, we're wishing you all the best for the season ahead, John. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks very much, mate.
Brilliant.
You too. All the best, mate. Thanks a lot. Just bye-bye.
So it's always a pleasure to welcome from Troon. It is always good to have Dean Keenan on the show. Dean, welcome to the show, mate. It's a pleasure as always.
Cheers, Scott. Good to be on again, mate. Good to catch up.
How are we? How's the prep going for the season?
It's been good. It's been good. The boys came back in good condition, which is a pleasing thing to start with. I think gone are the days boys going on 3, 4, 5 week holidays and binges and everything else. So they came back fit, so that was a good thing. And then we've hit the ground running in terms of games. So it's been a pleasing start.
Obviously, last season it was a bit of a weird league. Obviously, it was very competitive. What was the kind of post-mortem of the league last season? How did you kind of look back on it?
I think over the course of the season, there was a sense of frustration a wee bit towards the end, certainly, because I think the league position and then there's a wee bit of false. I think we had a really good campaign. Won a lot of big games, a lot of important games, beat a lot of the teams up the top end, and had a couple of good purple patches of form. But certainly, it's if it improve on last year at all, then we need to do it on a more consistent basis. And that's been the kind of message coming through pre-season.
One of the big things, obviously, is incomings, and I want to just touch on them as well. Obviously, there's two kind of real experienced players. One in particular I want to touch on, but like signing Nicky Dockett for Beith, bringing in Blair Richardson for East Kilbride, obviously two kind of young exciting talents. Chris Miller from Kilwinning, obviously a real storied time in St Johnstone. But how kind of important is he to the dressing room and obviously to build a kind of spine in the midfield?
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing that we kind of lacked a wee bit last year. When the going was getting tough in games, we kind of lacked that wee bit of experience to kind of help us through. So obviously bringing in Nicky, a title winner last year with Beith, been there for a number of years. Obviously his testimonial next week as well, same as my own. So Nicky's a real leader, a winner. Chris Miller's the exact same. He's went through he's a decorated career, and he's been brilliant since he came in. Looks as fit as ever and hungry, and shows a great desire. And yeah, so and then obviously Big Blair we had on loan last year, so he's had a really good pre-season also. But and then in the forward area, obviously we've managed to add Shankers from Auchinleck, who's for me one of the most incredible talents that I've worked with. So it's great to have him on board, enjoying his football. So it's been a good summer for us in terms of recruitment. And maybe fell short on one or two others, but listen, the squad that we've got, we're really, really happy with what we've managed to add through the summer. And the biggest thing for us was obviously managing to keep Jamie Gallagher at the club as well, which was proven difficult all summer, but thankfully we've managed to get that done, and the club deserves great credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, kind of speaking in Shankers as well, he's obviously the kind of difficult time with injuries and things like that. How's he kind of feeling towards the season ahead? And I think it is important that he went somewhere and enjoys his football, and I think he's going to get the best out of him. I really, really believe that.
Yeah, he's been good. Listen, we know that he's had a long time out in terms of injury, and we need to manage that and look after him as best we can. But the gaffer and myself, we set Santos down when we met him, and we'll measure how successful we've been with Mark this year by the fact that we want him playing 20, 30 games, you know what I mean? And that's starting games, not like coming off the bench. And we want him to start 25, 30 games if we can. And if we do that, then we'll have a really good chance in this league because, like I alluded to earlier, he's a terrific talent. He's a lovely boy, get to work with him again. And yeah, listen, if we can get him up to speed, there's no rush in terms of getting him up to speed, you know. I'm not going to rush him into things, but he said 20 minutes, 45 minutes, and then 60 minutes. And yesterday when we took him off after 60 minutes, I think there was more still in the tank. So that's a good sign.
What about the competitiveness of the league? Obviously, it's not getting any easier each season. What's the kind of thoughts on what's happening in the rest of the league?
It's just ridiculous the money involved now, to be honest, mate. Sometimes struggle to get the enjoyment through the summer when you're having to try and speak to players and bring players in, and the money that's banded about is just ludicrous, to be honest. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. There's going to be teams that have got a bigger budget than ourselves. There's going to be teams maybe with a lesser budget than ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's 11 v 11. You know, we know it's going to be a competitive league. Teams that have come up strengthened well, spent a lot of cash. Got Cairn, who came up. I watched them a couple of times last year. They've got a terrific experience behind their team, you know, and Mike's done really well since he went there. So that'll be a really difficult fixture for us. And there's been other teams strengthening. You know, Colin Riley's done a great job for them, and their recruitment looks good as well. So we're under no illusions. It's a competitive league. It'll not be any different than what it was last year. You know, there's a couple of teams up there to be shot at. You know, I think if you finish above Clydebank this year, you'll be doing all right. But listen, it's a tough league. We'll go and try and improve on last year and try and improve on our form. Like I say, we beat Beith 4-0 away from home. Could have been more. Beat Darvel by a big scoreline last year. But it was results against the teams running about us that weren't good enough. And if we really improve, then we need to do better in those games this year.
Final question: how was your golf day, and how much you're looking forward to your testimonial?
My golf day was brilliant. It was a good laugh. Good to get the boys together and that. And yeah, my testimonial this Saturday, I'm really looking forward to it, Scott. You know, it's playing against Ayr United, a club that means a lot to me as well. And it'll be great to see. There's an Old Crocs game before it, so it'll be great to see a lot of old faces and teammates. And yeah, there's been a bit of banter on the group chat and that so far as well. So it'll be great to. It'll be great. It'll be a great day. Hopefully, hopefully we'll get good weather and a good turnout. But in terms of football, in terms of the coaching side of things, it's also a final pre-season game, so I'm aware of that, and hopefully we get a good result.
Best of luck with the testimonial, Dean, and best of luck for the season ahead. Been a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, Scott. Thanks as always.
So we are delighted to be joined by the manager of Kirkintilloch, Rob Roy, Kevin McGoldrick. Kevin, welcome to the show. It's the first time I've ever had you on. It's a pleasure.
Thanks very much for inviting me, Scott.
No worries. Obviously, it's that time of the year again. The season's about to kick off. Speaking of last season, obviously you took the job midway during the season with Stuart going to Pollock. What was the kind of overall thoughts in last season? Obviously, staying up was a big objective, but what was the kind of the culture like at the club and how you found it so far at Rob Roy?
I'm not going to lie. When I first went in, there was obviously players. There was a wee bit of there were just things weren't right in terms of players were wanting to leave. I didn't know anybody in the squad. I'll give you a quick laugh, but our physio had passed, and I thought he was a centre half. so I didn't have a clue about who any of the players were. I just met them, but my first training session was met by a few players that were wanting to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It was a case of them getting to know me and me getting to know them, and I listened at that. It was basically all about winning games of football, let's be honest. So, first, I think it was the first 4 games we get beat, and I quickly realised, you know, I've took on something here that's I didn't think it would be as difficult, to be honest with you. But listen, there was a squad of, I think there was a squad of about 29 players, so you're bringing that kind of upheaval, you know, like players no playing, no getting a game, so you're having to basically, you know, cuddle them. You know, you're cuddling, you know, the first 11, and you're also having to cuddle the subs. So, aye, it wasn't easy, I'll tell you that. But listen, they were a really good bunch of guys. You know, we ended up, you know, I wouldn't say that there was one guy, you know, that in the team that caused problems or anything like that. But getting back to it was all about winning games, and obviously, thankfully, you know, we managed to keep us in the division, the team.
And what about obviously like getting a pre-season under your belt, getting the ability to bring in new players and have a complete kind of new start for the new season? How you kind of found that?
Aye, well, as I say, like nothing was ever personal, you know, with with that group of players. But I just felt that for us to progress as a club, you know, it needs to. When I felt that we needed to maybe a wee bit better quality. So, but we were relying on this new facility. You know, I promised myself I wouldn't try and bring the facility up, but it's hard not to.
Yeah.
When, you know, when there's a facility, it's been ready for months, you know, but we just can't get in. I don't know the politics of the council and Rob Roy. I don't know what's going on, but you know, you're trying to show new players this is where we're going to play, and we're still not there. So it's obviously a few players have moved on. You know, they never signed. So pre-season's been difficult to attract, and then not been cocky or anything like that. But like, obviously, I've been like, upstairs and in the senior game for a few years. So maybe I was targeting, you know, bigger fish, you know, for Rob Roy. So quickly had a wee thought, and we've brought in, you know, like good quality young players who are desperate. You know, let's be honest, you know, you want to play at the highest level, you want to coach at the highest level. So, you know, we want to use these players and they can use us, you know, maybe a one season to get these players maybe back upstairs, you know, that maybe lost their way a wee bit. So, so looking forward to the season. Obviously, you want to win every game, you know, but I'm a realist, you know, that Rob Roy, you know, for the last, you know, good number of years, you know, been fighting relegation. There's no getting away from that. However, we, you know, baby steps, you know, I think if we can progress, you know, look to progress and maybe stay away from the relegation zone, maybe, you know, going good runs and cups, you know, like take great inspiration for Cumnock last year. You know, 2 weeks before it, we managed to beat Cumnock. But the job, you know, quite good friends with Brian McGinty, and the job, you know, that him and H done was superb. And let's be honest, we're all in the game to try and win things. You know, in the Scottish Cup, you know, that would be a dream for the. Listen, not just for Rob Roy, but for the place of Kirkland-Tillage.
And what about obviously like kind of signings you brought in as well? Like, is there anything you want to tell us about them? Like any players to keep an eye on for the year going forward?
Obviously, like, you know, the young boy Adam Kettins, you know, he was a Scotland international, you know, a few years ago. Lost his way a wee bit, you know, like players do. There seems to be in the senior game, you know, these players kind of lose their way where they maybe they don't get offered a new contract. They're still in their teens, and they actually just quit playing. You know, they quit playing. So, you know, Adam's a local lad. You know, he's actually from the same street as me. So I've known Adam since he was a wee boy. So, you know, we want to basically get Adam to use us, just what I said earlier, to use us stepping stone, get his mojo back for the game. And fingers crossed, you know, I would love nothing better than these players to use Rob Roy, and then they go back upstairs and they make a career, whether it's part-time or whether it's full-time. That's the club that we want to be. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like obviously, like kind of final question before we wrap up, like you see the league, and we'll speak to a lot of managers, it is so competitive. There's a lot of kind of teams obviously coming up, and a lot of teams kind of rebuilding. It's shaping up to be some league, isn't it?
It isn't half. I mean, like last year, like last season, we would be competing against obviously the teams down the bottom. We couldn't beat the teams at the bottom, but then you look and we'd beat Auchinleck, we'd beat Darvel, So listen, consistency is the key for us. Last year, and as I say, no disrespect to any of the players, but I didn't know what I was getting week in, week out. For players, I need to mention Scott Walker. Scott Walker's been at the club, a good number of years. You know what you're getting for Scott Walker every week. He's a real good captain off the park and on it. So we need, these players, more of Scott Walkers, so that I know what I'm getting. Listen, it might not be quality. It might be hard work. There's different ways to win a game. So, but as I say, the key for us is a wee bit consistency for the players.
Brilliant. Well, Kevin, we can only wish you all the best for the season ahead. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much as well, Scott. I thoroughly enjoyed it.